So in the last month I've been working on this car. I've had some interesting and learned some interesting things that I probably would have overlooked, and I don't even know if anybody even actually knows this stuff. Knows this stuff. Anyway, knows this stuff. First thing was the carburetor. So I got the intake cleaned up, and I was looking at it, and I see some of the original paint on here, wrote the numbers down. Never really gave too much of a, paid any attention to it really, as far as, what's going on with it, just an intake manifold. I just recently, a few days ago, went to Carlisle. They had a Chrysler show, Dodge show down there, and saw lots of 4-barrel intakes for sale, looked at them, but, never, just not going to do it. Just going to keep Farrah's 2-barrel carburetor, which is pretty interesting. We'll come back to the intake in a second. But so I started taking the carburetor apart, and this is called a ball and ball carburetor. Ball and ball. I had no idea this even existed or what this was, but as I'm taking it apart, I look inside of it, and it actually is, it's got dirt in it, but it's actually in pretty nice condition. But more interesting to me is that it uses two metering rods, and I guess one metering rod works for one of those ports, and then the other one works for that one. I'm assuming that's what it is, because I hadn't really rebuilt too many carburetors in my life. I got into auto mechanics in the early 90s, so carburetors were kind of just pretty much dying out. But interestingly is that, and I didn't know this, but I started looking at the intake, and I realized that this side of the carburetor puts fuel for just 4 cylinders. You can see the top. So when I was cleaning this out, I noticed that only certain air and crap was coming out of these ports here. Runners, if you want to call them that. And then the other one, if you look down in there, you can see they're different depths. This one's a little bit shorter. This one takes care of these. Then you got this one, which does the other 4 cylinders. So you got a 2-barrel carburetor, and each barrel of the carburetor only supplies fuel to 4 cylinders. So I don't know what's the design of that is, or why they made it that way. But I always seen, when intakes I have looked into, is just pretty much open space. So the fuel just rolls around and it gets to where it needs to go. But on this style carburetor and intake, it actually has fuel going to just 4 cylinders. So on the throttle body, or I guess you'd call it throttle plates or whatever, it actually has 2 adjustments for rich and lean. Rich and lean right here. So you can set each one of them up. So it's going to be interesting to see how this thing runs. Here's the little coil, like a thermometer has, or a thermostat has. And that controls the, based on temperature, from the exhaust system, heats up, the coil contracts or expands, and turns on the choke. So it's got a mechanical choke on it. There's no cable on this. So I thought that was interesting. I really wasn't paying much attention to this at all, but they sent me the wrong carburetor kit. They sent me one for a 318, which I believe is a ball and ball, but it's a smaller 2-barrel. So the guy I bought it from on eBay said that the listing had been up for 5 years and no one rebuilds 2-barrel carburetors anymore, except for me. And then I started paying attention to all this stuff and was learning a whole lot more. So I got a new battery, and when I went to Deca, which is actually very close to my house, I had the woman working there make me brand new cables. So we've got a brand new negative and a brand new positive battery cable. I checked the battery to make sure it fits in the original battery hold down, and the hold down works, so it's the correct battery for that. So that's gold. We're getting pretty close to that. And then what else we got? Water pump came, a coil came. Let's see, the voltage regulator is modern. It has modern electronics in it. So I'm looking forward to using this, because supposedly it stabilizes and keeps the voltage not from spiking or whatever, but who knows. The radio, that's deefed. I hooked it up, I powered it up, it just farts, it doesn't do anything, so the radio is no good. When I was at Carlisle, I was trying to find a AM/FM radio, but they're pretty scarce. You know, so what else did we get done? The distributor's rebuilt, but it's wore out. The lobes on the end of the distributor shaft were pretty wore out. Actually, I could make another video of that when I put it in, but because that's interesting. I'm hoping that works. What else? Hoses came. You know, I'm pretty much starting to eat up all the parts now. Finally, making some headway. So I got these police wheels for sale on Craigslist because I really want to get a set of Magnum 500s for it. Here's what we got with the engine. So, got this air cleaner, pretty nice original condition at Carlisle for a 2-barrel. So, got one of those. I'll put an aftermarket air cleaner on this thing. It looks stupid. All the push rods are in. Everything's oiled up. I just set the valve covers on to see what it would look like, and finally figured out where all these wires go, which there isn't really a lot of them, but you got to make sure you're 100% correct. All this stuff is in here now. Yeah. Let's see, I'll take this out, show you what this looks like. All the valve trains in here, all oiled up. Just 1 quart of oil just to lubricate all these parts. The lifters, that was something that took me quite a long time. This engine would have never started after 42 years. Those lifters were all full of gunk, and they were all, nothing held pressure. They were all in pretty bad shape. But so it took hours of cleaning and taking them apart and making sure that they're okay. So they're good to go. Fuel pump's on. Today's job is going to be cleaning up all the wiring, taking all the paint off this, all this turquoise overspray, checking to make sure all the connections are good and cleaning them, and then start hanging my new starter solenoid, voltage regulator, valves, resistor, all that jazz. And starter's in. That's installed. So we're ready to prime oil pressure. Today's job is really going to be cleaning all the wiring, getting all the new electronic stuff installed. I think what I might end up doing is testing the original equipment to see if it works, but I'm not going to do a voltage regulator because I don't want to risk damaging my new alternator. The lines are ready to be installed for the transmission cooler. I had to cut all the rusty ends off. Had to look under there and reattach the starter bolts. There's a hanger for those lines so they don't dangle around. And get the water pump assembly on, get the front of the engine put back together, get the radiator cleaned out. So, you know, here's the thing. We went to Carlisle, and there must have been 600, 800 cars there. And there's any Mopar you could dream of from 68 to 72. Cudas, Chargers, Superbirds, all kinds of stuff. You know how many Dodge 64 Dodge Polaras were there? 4. One was a 330 wedge clone. The guy really wasn't too interested in talking about it. There was a beige 4-door 330 that was there. There was a orange station wagon, first station wagon I ever saw in person, which was pretty cool. And a really beautifully restored 64 Polara 500, a white one with a red interior. And it had a lot of options. It had AC, it had a 4-barrel, it had a clock, floor console. The only thing it did not have was the tachometer. Guy wanted $38,000 for it, and that was it. And I asked him, I was like, where are they? Everybody, we talked to all these vendors who were looking for parts, and every time we walked up looking for parts for this car, they're all like, oh, it's too old. Too old? Too old? You're selling 68 to 72 parts, and you're telling me that this is old? Where are they? Oh, well, they crushed them when they were good, and they scrapped a lot of them, they junked a lot of them in demolition derbies. This is what the Mopar community is telling me happened to these things. So, yeah, so it's not loose. The word rare is not loose here when I say that this thing is pretty damn rare. Oh, something else interesting. We looked at all of the trunk lids, and every one, including the one they had for sale but that wasn't attached to a car, all have crooked E's. All the E is crooked on all of them. So we were gonna fix this and adjust this, make it straight. You know what? We're not gonna do that. I don't know how that happened, but I thought that was pretty funny. Every one had a crooked E. Well, it must be something. So we got, what else did I buy? Well, I got these pieces. These are all, I got new felts for the inside and outside for the windows. So all these are going to get replaced. This one, from here all the way back down to here, I got brand new. Because I'm taking this out to take this trim off to go clean under here and make sure everything's really nice and clean and sealed up. Because I want this to be watertight, this car. And I bought these pieces. So that pretty much closes up everything for the glass so that moisture and water don't get in there. And I got a roll of moisture barrier for the door panels. Once I get those cleaned up and straightened out, there'll be moisture barrier put back in the doors. Started working inside the car. A little more. The floors are just pretty much done, waiting for turquoise paint, but took the glove box out and had a look in here, I was looking for the light bulb for it. Took the radio out, which you guys saw doesn't work, but let's not look at this. Nobody cut this up. It's still original. This temperature control cable was all bent, had to be fixed. So now it works the way it's supposed to. Opens and closes the water valve, which they were getting $50 for just this little knob that says temperature on it. All these controls I got pretty much working smoothly, and you press them. I don't know, look how tiny the little bulb is inside of there. A little light bulb in there that lights this up, so I don't know how that's gonna work. I didn't take the cluster out yet because I want a clock. So I got an interesting idea I want to do for the clock, but that's for a later video. So everything in here is pretty much, you know, with the exception of painting it, it's good to go. So I got a chance to go back in here and clean really good under the dash. I did find somebody stuck tin foil in the radio fuse, so who knows why they did that. The radio is damaged. I could even see on the very bottom of it that so there was actually a phone number and a name, so that radio had problems before. So that pretty much covers my update on what we got going so far. But next time I see ya, I'd like to get this engine oil, this thing primed up with oil pressure, and continue to keep on working. I'm still waiting for some parts for the rear brakes, but the drums are on. I didn't adjust the brakes yet. Hung the Magnum 500 wheel on there. Oh man, it looks really awesome. That thing looks awesome. So, I'll see you guys a little later with an update. Have a good one.